When I spit bars in a rave, man, I go hard like Santan.
Yes, what's going on? Welcome to Chessy Hour, part of the Touchline Fracas network. Standard practice again, weekly Chelsea content delivered every Friday morning for your ears by myself, Yassine James, joined by a lot of the team this week. Meads, what's going on, mate?
Not too bad, brother. How are you?
I'm good, alhamdulillah. Joe, you good?
Yeah, good, mate. How you doing?
All good, all good, all good. Dan Soft, how are you, mate?
What's up, man? I'm excited, bro.
Yeah, well, listen, let's start straight away because we're all children at heart, and I think transfer news is what gets everyone going, especially in times like this where we don't have any actual football to watch. We did put listeners' questions out for this week, and we thought it might actually be a slow news week. But as is the trend now on Thursdays, we've got something breaking to discuss. And it's all that, even on the questions, it's all that half the people want us to talk about anyway. So, put simply, it's looking possible to likely. Meads will get at me for this, but I'm gonna tell the listeners now. Listen, as Meads said, me and Meads had a chat about this, and we discovered since the Robinho signing, I've never let myself get hurt again. So until they're in the shirt. Probably even until they're 5 games in and I know what to expect. I don't get happy anymore. But allegedly, apparently, according to Fabrizio Romano of Sky Italia and Timo, his agents have confirmed to Chelsea that they're ready to consider and agree details for a contract offered until June 2025. If Liverpool will not hijack the move, then he's going to accept. Now, there is a little bit of chat that Liverpool were on it financially right now and aren't willing to spend.
Yes. Let's pause. Whoa. Because I've got some further news. So apparently, Liverpool are broke boys and they ain't got money to hijack the deal. So here we are. I know, yes, you are. I'm not going to say you're contrarian, but at this very moment in time, when it comes to signings, you don't believe it until it actually happens, and that's fine. I understand the heartbreak. I was there with you in the trenches. I understand, but you see me, my heart is quite resolute. I can deal with heartbreak. I've dealt with the reviews, the Neymars, I've dealt with all of that. I've dealt with the Morata signings, I've dealt with the Kepa. Listen, I'm resolute, you get me? So I can understand. I understand you though. I can empathize. I think
I've just got to a place now where it's not a heart of stone, you know. I still find joy in places. But I just try not to get too high. Try not to get
too high. And also, you calm down on everyone else. You won't let anybody else.
Well, I'm just worried you lot will drag me up like balloons.
It's Jermaine. Jermaine is the influence on everyone in the group chat.
Fair, he's not here to back himself, but I will call him out. He's had a bad effect on me because he makes me think I'm wrong.
To shut things down. Yas is the guy to shut things down. It don't matter how positive it's looking. No matter if he's in the training ground. No matter if he's sat with Marina. Nothing. He is not having it.
He needs to see the contract in a PDF in front of him, and then he's fine.
Mate, bro, I'm still not 100. Like I said to you lot, I said, until COVID's officially done, I don't know about the Ziyech thing yet. I don't care what's been signed. Listen, I don't care what's been signed. I don't know what's happening. But this Werner stuff does seem like it's got legs. There's been reports of what the contract details is, 10 million euros a year, release fee that's expiring before, I think, 15th of June it was. So they are moving quick. We'll get into it, but I'm not buzzing that he's been twerking for Liverpool for how long and seemed really, really dead set on that move. But then, like we've kind of discussed amongst ourselves, there is that pull with Lampard, and it's something we talked about a little while ago with players of that generation. Just before we get into any Werner deep dive, that must be something that's going right for us at the moment. It's something that Ziyech mentioned, and it's definitely that sort of player in their 20s. Having that icon in charge, it helps.
Means you can take the floor with this because we said it with Sancho. God, this is yours.
I said it. This is the thing, yeah. People were rubbishing the notion of young. It's true though. People were rubbishing the notion of having an icon. I think you need to stress Frank Lampard is a footballing icon and more importantly, a Chelsea legend. And I don't think you can get legendary status as high as Lampard unless you are the Didier Drogba's or the Terrys. And even that's up in the air, really and truly. Frank Lampard is an inspiration to a lot of these young players, especially in their early 20s. that's not to say that I feel like Werner did have a greater pull to Liverpool because obviously Jurgen Klopp, Champions League winner, they're going to win the Premier League now. He's a fantastic manager. And I think that any rational young player or player in general would want to play under him because he's infectious and he's a great coach. And he's showcased that over the last at least 10 years, in my opinion, since he's been managing. So he's been a fantastic manager. However, Liverpool are broke boys. So the next best option will be us. And the project that we're building, like, we said on the pod quite a number of times, we need a hitter and we need a goal scorer, whether they're from wide, whether they're up front. And he really does fit the bill.
Do you know what, Meads, on that, yeah? Whether they're wide, whether they're up front, I'm going to throw this to Dan because I know this is a chat me and Dan had. I think he fits the perfect profile of what we need in terms of numbers as well, in that being both. And being able to play with a number 9 and maybe being able to play off for number 9 or maybe even dropping off of himself. But that was almost the perfect thing of our squad where we didn't want to destabilise the wing players too much.
Yeah.
But we didn't want someone to interrupt Tammy's minutes too much.
Exactly.
It's a question we'll get into. Because it has been asked.
I'm so happy.
Sorry, Dan's face is killing me at the moment. Dan's face is amazing. I've never seen him smile so much in my entire life.
I've never seen Dan so chuffed in my life.
I'm going to turn my camera off, bro. You're going to say that I look like that Manny picture.
I've known Dan a long time.
I've been chatting to Dan for a few years now, and he's never relented on the goals over everything mantra, right? And even inventing GSI this season, and also
big stat.
And from when you're now, I can see why the smile's coming because if we just gloss over his season so far, listen, I don't know how sustainable it is, but this season, 28 starts, 29 games, 25 goals.
It's a mad thing. And I feel like, because I think Meads, out of all of us, you were the first one. You came to the chat once, you said, Werner's it. Werner's it. And I went over and I kind of looked at the videos. And look, I'm just happy because Liverpool fans are sad. I listened to the Liverpool podcast. They had a special guest journalist, and they were talking about how we're it now, we're big. But when it comes down to it, when the time comes, they don't have the funds. You're talking about Roman.
Roman's pulled out the black MasterCard and gone, sorry lads. Roman's pulled out the card, he's flexing.
Innit? All of these clubs saying, I want to be run as a business. Well, you're a business. And right now, the economy's not looking too good. But that's what I'm trying to say. So, with Werner, I've done my deep dive. I've done the stats. I think I done a tweet 2 weeks ago. Out of all of the strikers under 25, take away Mbappe, no one can really track the Werner, And this is someone that can play, like you said, wide, that can play up front. So, I think on the pods, we've talked about it as well in terms of we lacked 2 critical things in terms of creativity and goals. Ziyech, Werner, I can't complain. I honestly can't complain.
But also, it's not just the players, but it's the business, man. I got a few of my mates who were asking me about the Werner thing earlier, and a lot of them are gooners. And when you think that Werner is a bit of change more, 10 million more, Werner and Ziyech are 10 million more than what was splurged out on Pepe last year, than what is splurged out on one player. The Sancho thing for 100 and whatever is going to cost at this state of the market. It's savvy business. It's people at good ages. It's people who've contributed to winning teams.
Okay, boys, let's have this discussion. A couple of pods ago, we had this discussion in regards to the efficiency of our transfers and how much we're going to be spending and whether it's rational and whether it's actually sensible for us to be spending 130. I think the price was quoted about 130 million pounds on Sancho. And whilst we agreed and we feel and believe that Sancho is a fantastic player and that can't be denied, 130 million pounds on one player didn't really sit right with any of us, really. And when it came to divvying up how we'd spend the money, all of us kind of agreed that, we'd rather get an attacker that hits goals. We'd rather get a creative player that could either play wide or play centrally to create and feed in midfield. And obviously, we're quite comfortable with our squad already in terms of Loftus-Cheek, the Hudson-Odoi, so we didn't want to disrupt what we already had. And it's just crazy how it's almost like Frank is listening to the pod and thinking, you know what?
Needs. Why do you think news comes out? Why do you think news comes out on Thursday?
Because honestly, the structure of it is crazy.
They're looking out for us. Why do you think news come out on Thursdays? They listen to the pod. They're teeing it up for us, man.
Every Thursday, they listen to
They know they need to get it out by lunchtime.
I think this is going back to last week, Meads. You see when you said that I've changed my tune on Lampard a little bit, which I held my hands up, it's based on evidence. Maybe it's the other way around. Maybe he's changed his tune.
They're listening to Yas.
Based on the pod. Because it's hard to tell. Cause and effect.
I mean, it's undeniable at this point in time, though.
Bro,
it's absolutely undeniable, the correlation.
I'm telling you, the way things keep falling into place, every Thursday we get a good positive announcement or an announcement of sorts that matters to the club. It's weird. It's weird how it's working. And it's also weird how the composition of our attack has just completely changed now. So, that's just Werner. And that doesn't mean that Tammy's now come to the bench. Even Jay has got his request. Jay was requesting that you can get a striker in that isn't so far gone of Tammy, but he's a goal scorer. And he could either play wide, but also he could push Tammy in terms of that starting up front as well.
Yeah.
So it's also
I've got reservations for sure about Werner in terms of things, but the one thing I always maintain with the Tammy stuff, and this is why, Joe, when we would have chats about Edouard and stuff, I love Edouard, he's quality, but my biggest thing for any forward player that we sign is I wanted them to be an alternative above all else, rather than a direct replacement or like for likes change or sub or whatever. And I don't think you could have got two more different players, if I'm honest. Just a quick one to frame the chat on Werner, because I think I found this and I found it really interesting read, to be fair. They were chatting to Nagelsmann, who a lot of people have credited with accelerating Werner's game a little bit and really cracking on with him, because last season he was good. Last season he was efficient. Last season XG of 0.54 per 90, very, very strong for a striker at that level, and 16 goals, 30 games, it matches up. This season, XG of 0.74 per 90. So even the finishing, it's high, it's higher than that, but he's getting on the end of good chances. So he's definitely benefited a little bit from a good coach, a top coach, a good system, a really ingrained philosophy in the club. But I did find this particularly interesting, especially in terms of one of the listener questions and a few which will come up in terms of how he's going to look, and a lot of people sort of worrying about the Tammy thing. So before we get onto any listeners' questions, they asked Nagelsmann about Werner, basically the Bundesliga official website. And he said, yeah, he's a different profile. It's part of the reason we've started him a bit deeper. We don't want him right on the last line because he needs a bit of a head start, a bit of tempo in order to really show his pace on the pitch. When he's on the last line, he finds himself static when he needs to get going. But with a bit of room in front of him, he can hit top speed. And from this deeper position, he's much more involved in our build-up and combination. In the last few years, all his moments have been coming in transition, whereas now he can combine and he has his moments in that area too. He's having more touches, and his new position has done his development good, playing in between the lines against teams who sit deep. Alhamdulillah. That's another trait he'll need to develop further in Europe. So,
hold on. I'm intrigued. Give me more.
Well, that's more that he's talked about. But then I think that's the main quote. But when you look at Werner's sort of positions in Nagelsmann's system, as opposed to the old sort of 4-4-2 smack bang bang go Red Bull, he does work the channels a lot more, and he does seem to interchange a little bit with Nkunku on the left, and he does rotate a little bit, and he does come a bit. He's still very much a get in behind, angle the run, finish. Like Joe, you put up a fantastic radar graph recently that we're going to share on the account tomorrow, showing that his game is goals, chances, XG. But I think we're really benefiting from the fact that even Ziyech, to sort of go off on one a little bit, he was very much a winger. this last season, because of the losses that Ajax have had, he's had more experience in the middle and being a sole creator and had to adapt from scorer to creator. And now Werner, we've benefited, if he signs, potentially, from him having a top coach who's working to make him a more rounded player. My main reservation with him was that he might just be a bit hit over the top and we don't get that space and we're not the Bundesliga. Yeah. But if a top coach is saying that he's really developed in those little interchanges and combinations, that's music to my ears. Joe, is there any reservations you have about this signing, or is it smooth sailing for you?
Yeah, very similar to you, Yaz, I think. I mean, I know my sort of one criticism of the Bundesliga is just how open it is at times. And, you know, whether you get these players that have these enormous attacking outputs, how that translates to specifically the Premier League. So I think there is that little bit for me. Certainly, like, in terms of his position, I think probably certainly in the Premier League for me at the moment, he's a wide forward. So how that translates in terms of what he's being asked particularly. But I think if we're sort of just trying to simplify things a little bit, you know, this is a guy who I think certainly from that sort of left-hand side, sort of either the kind of the wide channels or sort of the half spaces from the left-hand side, you know, his runs, his ability to finish consistently, just his sort of general kind of work rate as well, I think is really, really impressive. So I think at the moment he's certainly someone who can give the club a slightly different option to Tammy. I think also, you know, the interesting thing this season will be whether we see us play two up top more often. So Tammy with you know, Werner kind of dropping into the hole a little bit deeper directly behind him. But I'm really positive, viable and obtainable, but also who just seems to score an awful lot of goals. And okay, maybe he doesn't hit that many goals in the Premier League, but I think he's certainly someone that will get you double figures. You know, if he can sort of hit the ground running. But I'm really, really happy with the signing. I think it's one of those that we've all looked at as a goal scorer and the needs that we need to have in that area. I think he fits it perfectly. Certainly coming from that left-hand side, cutting in on that right foot. You know, there aren't many better in Europe, really. If you look at sort of the variety of goals and finishes he has from that area that are better than him. And yeah, I mean, as you said earlier, you know, the fact that Liverpool fans are now sort of slightly crying a little bit about it makes it even more sweeter. But I'm really, really happy with the signing, particularly when you combine it with Ziyech and compare it to the Pepe fee and some fees that were paid for other players in the past.
I think it's definitely something that Dan alluded to the other day when you asked on the account, Dan. Out of our squad, who are you confident on being put through 1v1? And everyone was scratching their chins, heads, everything.
Yeah.
Point.
Yeah, and I will give Werner that. He is rapid. He times his runs well, and he's good 1v1. He does like a little finish in between the keeper's legs, and he has that sort of Henry curler.
He's got the little curl in the corner. Yeah, he likes that.
You know what Jermaine said? It was like a Nelka.
Actually, yeah, I can see that a lot. Actually, yeah, that's a really, really good comparison. He's like the next. So every generation of player, there's a white player that has that sort of pace. He's this generation's player that it fits the P&P kind of model. So we finally got
who was the last great white hope, Joe?
Craig Bellamy, bro. Craig Bellamy. Bellamy, all pace. Oh, Bellamy used to breeze past people with his little gremlin body. Him, mate.
I swear, I didn't expect that. I swear.
No, but do you know what? Do you know what it is, right? With Werner, I don't think the best thing about his signing is not only his tactical flexibility, and obviously Nagelsmann alluded to it earlier, but it's his capacity. I don't think he will take a lot away from anyone else. I think generally he will enhance us. Yeah. I don't think we have to sacrifice much to get him in, if you get what I'm trying to say. I feel like there's a lot of players that you could buy and then you start sacrificing the team stuff just to get the best out of him. Whereas I don't think you necessarily get that much with Werner. It's hilarious because even Rafa Hogenstein said on Touchline Fracas that he believes that Werner would take Liverpool to the next level, so up a gear. So, I mean, he's highly regarded in Germany, quite clearly. So it's going to be quite interesting to see, well, if he does come, like Yas says, how well he does for us. Because again, the best thing about signing multiple players, I guess, in my opinion, of a good quality and good standard, is the burden isn't all on them. So Ziyech coming in by himself, if it was just him and we just got Ziyech and that was it, the burden on him to perform and improve us would be great. Whereas now it's Ziyech and Werner, the responsibility isn't only on one player. You need to bear in mind we're also getting players back from injury as well. So there's just the natural burden, and they're almost going to be like fresh players. Like Ruben for me is like a new transfer, a new player, and you may not get the same quality.
Careful. That's Arsenal rhetoric.
Let me give
Arsenal
my caveat.
rhetoric.
Let me give my caveat.
That's a Wilshere thing.
Let me give my caveat. Now, you may not get the same Ruben pre-injury, but what you do get is a player that has quality.
100%.
And that's it. And that, again, it's all about splitting the burden. Myself and Dan have had this theory for the longest of time. You can't have a team that is reliant on one player in terms of bringing quality, because the burden on them becomes way too much. And when you're solely dependent on them, they can't be 100 every time. They can't. Not even the best can be. So it's very difficult to give it to a player and let him do his thing. You need to have multiple players on the pitch that can do stuff. Because once you share the burden, you're generally going to be a better team.
Do you know what? I think I'm going to hold it there for a sec, because there's a listener question that we're going to get into, which I think can really lead us into that and talk about Werner's relationship with everybody else, because I think it's fascinating to speculate on if he signs. We'll jump in. We'll start with the listener questions now. Obviously, we've recently set up the Chessy Hour Discord, so everybody listening, get involved in that. Really jump on. We're going to make that as interactive and editable on a daily basis. Discord questions, for listeners' questions now do get priority, so they're the ones we will just always lead with as well. So if you want to just be at the start of the pod with that question, lead the discussion, lead us down our rabbit holes and arguments and fracas, then please jump on that. First one from Manny. Assuming Werner signs, this is my type of guy, this. Assuming he does. Who will have the bigger impact on Chelsea next season, Ziyech or Werner?
Good question. Very good question. I think in terms of direct goals, and I think that for me probably is the biggest problem in our attack, is just that we don't have enough people that consistently score. I would say Werner, but with the caveat that I think Ziyech will add an absolute ton in terms of creativity. So I expect us to have better quality chances, but I expect Werner to be on the end of them. So just purely in the fact that he'll be the guy sticking the ball in the net, I'll go with Werner.
You know what? For me, balancing that out, Ziyech will probably score 2. He'll score 2.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Level, but he'll create 2. But I think I'll agree with you, just because, like, echoing what Mead said, like, when you just have one goal scorer in your team, no one's like going to be popping for the whole season. So when one goes down, there needs to be another one there just to kind of pick up the slack. And for the last 3 seasons, we had Morata scoring. Then he went down. There was no one to pick up the slack. Then I think it was Hazard doing it. And it just always seems we're just relying on one person. And then after Christmas, they go bust. So hopefully, if he signs, we'll have Tammy and Werner, or even like Hudson or Ziyech. I think we've got more goals. I'm more confident.
More than enough, man. We've got more goals now.
I haven't been this confident in our attack for a long time.
You know what I'm saying, bro?
You're asking me to choose.
Dan, do you know how this has been a journey, bro? I don't think people understand how much of a journey this has been. Because for the last couple of years, maybe the last 4 or 5 years, we have literally spoken about the lack of firepower, and we've spoken about the burden that is on one player. You can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
You can't. And remember, Dan, during the season, you were worried about what Lampard was saying in terms of the burden, because he kept referencing it. And you kept thinking, oh, so he wants to just sort it by getting another striker. But I was like, no. And I was trying to clarify. I was saying, Lampard sees what we see. Yeah. You need to understand, because he knows.
He listens to the pod. He knows what the issues are.
He listens to the pod.
He knows what we're saying, because we've been saying for all year, we have been saying, look, yes, Tammy's done his thing, and as much as people say that we've been harsh on Tammy and been harsh on Pulisic or harsh on blah, 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 but the reality is, Tammy's done okay. He's done well. He's done his thing. However, the rest of the attack have not been pulling their weight. So as much as you want to be talking about Pulisic scoring 6 goals or blah, 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 no, it's not enough. The reality is it's not enough. And Pulisic Pulisic hasn't pulled his weight.
Oh,
Mount hasn't pulled his weight.
shit.
Is he back to being
a
called
lot
the
of these
American
players-
for the time
a
being?
lot of these- a lot of these people haven't pulled their weight. So
You know
that's
what,
why
listeners,
we've
did you hear-
not been comfortable with our attack. We've never been comfortable with our attack. Now we've got a Werner as well as a Tammy. I'm not too concerned about worrying. Okay, if Tammy doesn't score, who else is going to score?
Yeah.
I'm not going to be worried about that.
I remember going into one season with Conte, and it was Morata. I think me and Mead said, okay, we need Batshuayi and Morata to play, otherwise it's done. And then this season as well, going into the season, at the beginning of the season, it was like, okay, cool. We've got Tammy, but we probably need another striker to play too, because otherwise it's done. But at least this time it looks like we're actually going to have 2 goal scorers on the pitch. And I
That
can't
is
be happier.
crazy.
And
When's
I
the
know...
last time?
And I know rival fans listening to this are going to be sick because they've never seen so. Yeah, I bet you can hear my smile. You don't even have to. I bet you can hear it.
Oh, mate.
I'm a
Look,
shut up.
But this is the thing. It's not just Werner. Like, it's a good question to comparing Werner and Ziyech because Ziyech can bag as well. He
I
can
know.
bag.
listen, and
He had a drop last year because he was made to be the creator, but the season before and that he can bag.
but hold on, yes. What have we been saying for the last couple of months? We can't be hopeful on Ziyech to bang.
Yeah.
We can't. You can't be hopeful on a player to bang. You know what I mean? Especially if they've not been consistent throughout their career in terms of goal scoring. Yes, he can score. Yes, he can bang. But we can't be dependent on hoping that he does it. That's just crazy.
We can't expect our attack to have their best season, like each individual in the attack to have their best season for us to compete. Do you know what I mean?
That's
I do just want to make a point. Because we really got the visuals up and we're working on that as we speak. But we're on Zoom and I can see Dan. And even there, where Dan was criticizing, he was still smiling.
You can't hide it today.
He's like, you can't expect just one player with a big smile.
But it's true though.
Listen, do you know what? That perfectly segues into the question that I particularly like, and I think we could spend a lot of time on. So, CFC Max asked, and I'm going to shout out Jordan Allen for asking the second half of it because he's a Boston sports fan, and I'm not really a Pats guy, but I'm a Celtics guy. So, Jordan Allen asked the second half. CFC Max asked both. A, how is Werner going to be deployed in Lampard's system? And B, what happens to Tammy? So for me, I'm going to lead on the Tammy one. People might disagree here. I don't see Werner starting as a 9 70% of the time. I see Tammy as leading the line. I think Lampard values hold-up play, occupying a back four, running with Chazels, being a presence, being a good presser, being in the box. I think he values Tammy's work too much and the profile of Tammy as a striker. He's had success already with Giroud, Tammy being a pivot striker. I don't see Werner in the Prem being a sole 9, personally. He's not going to get the spaces that he has in Germany, 30, 40 yards to run into. I see him predominantly as playing on the left. Jordan Allen on the users does make a point that we could go 2 up, but we're a bit stacked in midfield now. I think it would be really interesting to see a Werner playing off Tammy, but then there's a big question with the midfield and everything. So how do you lot see Werner fitting in terms of little patterns of play? Will it be a lot of the build-up down the right to release him on the left? Is he going to come inside more? How are we going to fit this in?
I will let Joe lead on that.
I think the way that I see this window panning out is a little bit from, maybe a little bit from hope, but also a little bit what I'm expecting to see. I think the way Lampard will balance the team is he will have an attacking left central midfielder playing someone like Ruben. He'll have someone like Werner, whose job on the left will purely be to obviously sort of link play and stuff like that, but his main objective will be to come off the left-hand side, link with Tammy, score goals. And I kind of think in my head that they'll go for a more defensively minded left back to sort of balance that side out. Right hand side, you can have Reece James bombing up and down. You've got Kova, Kante playing in that right slot, a bit more defensive, a bit more solid. And then the right winger tends to be a little bit more someone who's more willing to come back. Ziyech is someone who does a lot of running, for example. So I think that potentially is how he's going to try and balance the team, is have a little bit more offensive minded players on the left, balance it a little bit on the right hand side. Tammy sort of being the kind of pivot player, the link player up top. I see Werner, for me, primarily being a left winger coming off the left-hand side in a 4-3-3. But I think the interesting thing for me, and I know that we've spoken a little bit about playing a diamond in midfield in the group chat is potentially having Werner as a sort of a secondary striker behind Tammy and seeing if we can actually utilise our strength, which I think we all kind of agree is in sort of the midfield area. See if we can kind of make use of that in some of the tougher games. But I think primarily he'll be a left winger. I think his job will be almost just to be a wide centre forward. Not really there to sort of be a playmaker or create, but really be there to actually start causing the opposition some problems. I think also it'd be really interesting to see how he links up with Ruben, because the games that Ruben played with Hazard when they were both fit and on it, that's some of the best kind of football in that area of the pitch we've seen for a while. So Ruben, hopefully when he comes back, him, Werner, Tammy, that little triangle there with a solid left back behind them, bit more balance on the right hand side. I mean, I'm really excited about seeing something like that on the cards.
I think the diamond is fanciful, because I think even in the pre-season in Ireland we were getting.
It's terrible, to be fair. I just want to see two strikers at some point.
Oh mate, I love it. I miss two strikers so much.
Great,
but I think with the signings, if you had sort of Kante, Jorginho, Kovacic with a responsibility to just sit and then have a wing back bomb on, I think Ziyech at the top, Werner, Tammy, and a wide player could do a lot of damage as a four going forward. So it'll be interesting. At least I think Ziyech and Werner, even Pulisic does nicely in 10 spaces against weaker teams. We've seen Callum at youth level play off the top. I think there's enough versatility for it where we don't alienate. On the system question, Meads, who loses out? Because the Havertz links aren't going away either. So we're looking a bit top heavy.
Okay, top heavy. I think that's a strong statement.
Put it this way.
Go on.
If you're Ross Barkley, a returning from injury Ruben Loftus-Cheek, or Callum Hudson-Odoi, seeing a lot of names in front of you. So there'll be someone to lose out.
Let's talk. So, like I've said before on the podcast, like I said from day one, Frank Lampard doesn't fancy Pulisic as much as people think he does. Generally references, Pulisic had a good run of form, a good couple of games, blah, blah, blah. And it's very, very difficult for his type, the way he plays. I think Pulisic is very, he's very static when he plays sometimes. And that's because he isn't brave. I feel like a lot of the time he's so passive and static, it's very difficult for him to be that dynamic player that I feel his style of play is. And he becomes a ghost in games. And as much as people say, he does little bits here, when he slots into the 10, he can find people. Right. But we have Ziyech now. We have Ziyech now. And Ziyech is not a passive player.
What was the shout in August was scrappy do, does some nice things, not impactful in the box so much. The injury hasn't really helped because a bit of momentum was coming, and now he's got two signings that come at a top club.
But this is what I was saying to you guys before. Pulisic isn't a bad signing if you want a squad player. Pulisic is a very decent squad player, a very good tactical weapon, very good tactical option, I'd say. Will he be content in being that role or having that role? That remains to be seen. Does he feel like he can be a high-level player at a high-level club playing week in, week out? That remains to be seen. But at the end of the day, a fighter. One thing I can't take away from Pulisic is he's a fighter. So these kind of players coming in, it should push him because of his mentality. It should push him. Really.
Okay, so answer me this in terms of selection.
So in terms of selection, for me, I feel like
Ziyech and Werner starting because they're big money. So then you've got 3 more slots to fill.
Right. So how I'd work it is, so on a 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1, I'd play Werner on the left, Tammy up front, Hudson on the right, and it'd be Ziyech as the 10, in my opinion. And then I'd have 2 defensive midfielders, and that would be Kovacic and Kante. That would be me.
Havertz?
That would be the way I structure it. So if we get Havertz, then Hudson misses out, and that's comfortable.
Okay.
That's Hudson missed out, and then you put Ziyech on the right. because then you have two creators. And I guess a hybrid goal scorer in Havertz, as well as Werner, as well as Tammy. But then again, that doesn't mean Tammy is safe. Tammy could also come out of the side. Werner could come in. Like, it becomes very, very flexible. And that's one thing that is critical to a big side. You need to have flexibility. You need to have tactical flexibility. So I'm not mad. If we get Havertz, I'm over the moon. I'm jumping for joy. Like, because people say, oh, you can't have too many good players. Fine. I believe, my firm belief is you can sort that out after. The cream will generally, if there is a fair selection process, and especially if there's a manager that will give people opportunities rather than having, again, predetermined winners, because we've already discussed.
This is where we've been before. This is where we've been before years back, and we've had the wrong players leave.
Right. So what happened? So we had this discussion even a couple of weeks ago about Tammy and Mason Mount being the predetermined winners because they're the academy projects, and the academy, you know, we're going to thrust you into the mainstream and the starting 11. Cool. However, Frank Lampard has recently come out and said, look, we are not like a youth setup where you know, we're like a youth centre and everyone just comes in and gets to go. No, we are competitive. We want to win. Frank, and I said this before, you guys disagreed with me, and I'm going to be in my I was right bag again.
That's
Frank is a winner. Frank is the winner. Frank throughout his career, there is no way in hell that he's gone throughout his career winning and accepting, like, here, of, you know what, I got no money. Cool. I'm going to blood the youth because they deserved it. They've merited this moment, and I'm going to bridge the gap between the first team and the youth team. I'm going to do all of that. However, when it's time to blow the bag, when it's time to get competitive, I'm on it. I'm not here to make up numbers. I'm not here for bands. I'm here because I feel I could do the job. And that's what I knew that he was on from the jump. And he showed it, he said it, and he's delivering now. Just by the targets that he's targeting, the players that he wants in. If we get Havertz, no one should complain about, oh, what about this? Because these are players of quality. I have no problem with spending money on quality. I've said it too many times. You don't want to spend money on shitty squad players when you've got a youth academy that are prim and proper, ready to play, rather than getting a 40 million on drink waters. I will never accept it. Havertz, bring me. Werner, bring me. Ziyech, bring me. These other youths, I'm not trying to hear. I don't want to hear other shitty youths. It don't make no sense. We've got a youth team, youth squad, a very good youth squad that are willing and ready to play if necessary.
I was hearing names like Ryan Fraser.
Come on, Ryan Fraser. Do you know how many youth players we got at levels?
That is like Fraser. Listen, no disrespect to Fraser. He's been quality in the Premier League. He probably will get himself a move, brilliant. But that stinks of Tal Ben Haid and that summer. He's free, so we'll do it.
People get offended when I turn my nose up at those kind of players. That's not to say that Fraser's not a good Prem player. He's a very good Prem player, and he'll probably go on to do good things at maybe a Spurs or Everton. He do good things, and that's not to say he's a bad player. However, why would you spend 30, 40 million pounds on a 25-year-old, 26-year-old that is not going to elevate you when you've got an 18, 19-year-old that is buzzing to play for your team?
He's
buzzing, and they will run for you.
And as much as a naysayer as I am with these transfers, I think it is refreshing that for the first time in a little while, we seem to be in the conversation legitimately rather than just another like for me, last season, if we didn't have the ban, we're not in the Havertz conversation. If Real Madrid and Bayern Munich are in that conversation, we're not in that conversation. But Joe, just a quick one on that. Go on, Dan.
I was going to say, if you take a look at the landscape right now, you see Barcelona bartering, trying to do anything to sign Lautaro. They don't have the bag. You see Liverpool and their situation. Like, they couldn't afford 55 million Werner. They don't have the bag. You see Man City banned from the Champions League. Who's going to go there? Do you know what I'm saying? Right now, it's United or Chelsea. That's why whenever there's a top player, it's United and Chelsea at the table.
Maybe. we should probably have 2 windows off every year if this is.
Brother, this is what's gonna happen.
Bro, honestly, you joke, I joke, but like you're right though. We've got the players coming through that can contribute at least at squad level. So why not just do it every 2 years? Make sure you measure your targets. But Joe, just a quick one. What does Werner mean regarding Havertz and Sancho? I mean, I can tell that this is from Raul Cortez. I can tell them what it means for Sancho. Not any different. We ain't getting him. Joe, what does the Werner signing mean for Havertz?
So this summer, Chelsea are getting quite a big lump sum from Atletico for Alvaro Morata. It's about 47 million pound. So Werner's probably going to cost the club about 19 million quid a year in costs. And that's 50 million and about 175,000 pounds a week. Havertz on a similar deal is comfy. He's really comfortable at that level. So
I've seen is we are having to lower the price a lot, obviously, but there seems to be something of a market for Bakayoko as well, which is pretty reassuring.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So not only are you getting off all of those, getting a direct cash injection from the transfer fee, you're getting rid of all of those, amortization costs as well. So club freeing up tons of money by getting rid of, I think, some of these squad players or players that are just out on loan. There's no point paying 15 million pound a year on the books for someone who doesn't even kick a ball for Chelsea. So, get these guys off the books.
And then, he's my goat. He's my goat. What the
exactly,
hell?
yeah.
Like he's getting rid of the drink wars and them. Nah, my goat. That's my goat.
Number one.
I stand.
That's my goat. But yeah, go on, Joe. Sorry for cutting you.
No, it's cool. But yeah, I mean, so I think even without getting rid of players, that money for me comfortably covers another player at sort of the Werner level in terms of spend. If Havertz is a little bit more, you could probably go up to 25, probably 27 million pound a year for someone like him. So it's really comfortable sitting about other teams. Liverpool have got no money. Their Fenway Sports Group are already sort of, cutting wages in America for the Red Sox. They've put off doing their massive redevelopment of Anfield. City really won't be able to buy anyone. I don't know how attractive they'll be. Oil markets have tumbled. No Champions League. Us and United, and even United have kind of dipped a little bit in sort of what's going on with the economy. So, for us, if we put our foot on the accelerator in this window, that gap between City and Liverpool and us, I do think it can close quite a bit. And as I think if they're saying
the underlying
top quality players.
Liverpool, I mean, they didn't make any noticeable signings last year either. And their underlying numbers, they overperformed a lot of metrics this year.
Yeah.
Now, that's not to take anything away from them. They've been top class. They've been one of the best Premier League sides in terms of efficiency, even if the football's not been amazing this year. But I don't know, when you look at the numbers behind it and potentially no big reinforcement, it does feel like the sort of thing that can drop off quite quickly.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So I think the club have, you're right, realised that this could be quite a big opportunity of a summer, while a lot of people are sort of standing still. If you take a step forward, then it can really help. I think something touched on there in terms of being prudent financially, and what Mead said in terms of you can't have enough quality. A lot of listener questions are my favourite one, to be fair, was worded perfectly, and it was from, let me try to find the geezer, Chris Stevens, I think. Chris Steven, and he basically just said, will we get a defence? There
are so many burner accounts from you on this Discord. There's like 15 burner accounts.
So, I mean, Simon Johnson at the Athletic seem, and everyone, and it's been said, and it's a Lampard.
Yes.
And listen, I know, but we got to talk about it. I'm refusing to believe that Ashley Cole has anything to do with this. That's got to be rubbish, by the way. Like, that's crap. But yeah, Chilwell is looking almost definitely nailed on. Now, the fees are mental. We don't have to go too much into Chilwell, but if Chilwell comes in at left back, a few other people have asked if we sign any centre backs. So, for example, Aladdin CFC just said centre back problem is a big inconsistency for us that they've asked about. Rubanga 11 was asking if you don't want to go for Koulibaly, I think just trying to rule out an obvious target, who would you go for at the centre back just to complete? Sam Pointing says 3 great signings there in terms of Ziyech, Chilwell and Werner.
Yeah.
Just the centre back that needs to compete. So is there anyone that you guys think hopefully could come through? I mean, I don't see any links, so it might be fanciful.
For me, there's two that I've earmarked that I really like. So there's Akanji at Dortmund, who I think is very, very solid, very good defender and good on the ball. So Akanji is one. There's no links, of course, but he's one that I'd earmark and say, yeah, he'd add a lot to our defence because of his defensive stability and his ability on the ball. But also, I've forgotten how to say his name. Upamecano? Sorry.
Yeah, Upamecano, yeah.
He's a very good player.
Listen, I'm glad it was you who got that name wrong, because the optics would have been good for me getting it wrong.
Very. Yeah. Listen, I've been saying his name so consistently for so long, but then I'm just like, Upamecano? But yeah, Upamecano. Good defender. He's a very good defender. He's Werner's teammate at Leipzig. Yeah, he makes defending look very, very easy. He's so mature for his age in terms of just his defensive awareness, tactical awareness. Again, ability on the ball, very good. Not as good as Akanji on the ball, but still good on the ball. And he's not a rash defender. I feel like the kind of profile that we're looking for in terms of like that side of the defense is someone that's composed, that isn't rushing into tackles, isn't like a super aggressor, but can be aggressive. So it's almost like we're looking at the Van Dijk mold. So someone that is very imposing, physically dominant, strong, but very composed, good on the ball, and isn't all of them apart from Christiansen, but Christiansen is a little bit on the slighter side, so can be physically dominated. So yeah, I think Upamecano and Akanji would be good signings. Those are the two that I'd be looking at. Obviously, Koulibaly would be great, but I don't know how much it'll cost.
I think I'm always very wary of signing players when they've had their best ever season as well.
Right, exactly.
You're signing the player from that year rather than the one you're going to get for the fee of that year. I think, yeah, I mean, the two you've mentioned definitely have an upside. Dan, one that I'd like from you really to chime in on is we've got a question from Lampard Till I Die. Now listen, boys who are listening, yeah, girls who are listening, man them who are listening, girl them who are listening, if you're going to ask questions, yeah, I beg you just change your name, but like
Jermaine's second account.
I just want to be able to say
That's your name.
Jermaine's account
has asked the question, Jerome asked the question, Lampard Till I Die, like that's not what you get called at home. But anyway, Christensen, yay or nay long term? It's a good, frank question.
For me, it's a nay.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say it's a nay is because I don't see him as a starter. And I know, we all know with him and his dad, like...
Dad, bro.
Yeah,
like
they're on it. And look, he served his time is already. Like, he left us and he played, like, as a starter in Germany. So he's tasted that. And I think it's difficult to tell him to come back and just be a bench boy. So what I would say, I'd say sell him. Let's continue to raid the Bundesliga. Meads have been dropping the names. I don't care who it is. I don't really watch the Bundesliga like that. I know the defenses are bad, but all the Championship manager dons are saying, all the football manager dons are saying, Upamecano is good. Like, obviously, that's Werner's boy, innit? So, and if we take him, then maybe they'll play Ampadu as well. So.
Yeah, true.
So yeah. I think we should sell Christiansen. I think we just need someone to come in to always start. Because I don't like the fact that we're constantly rotating. Like, he doesn't trust anyone. Lampard needs his man in defence that is always going to play.
Right. That would definitely be a Akanji and Upamecano.
I would argue that while the defending as a neutral and a fan in the Bundesliga doesn't look good, and it does have the highest rates of goals in the top 5 leagues, like it's a pretty significant percentage above, like not massively, but significant across loads of games. I would argue that it's going to be one of the hardest leagues to defend in because of the demand from the fans and from the managers to play a certain way and leave so much space behind you. So while it's a funny one, whilst you look at the league sometimes and think, what the hell, like I'm not going to see that. They're not going to have that in the Premier League. It's not the same in the Premier League. The Premier League is a funny one, but it's not quite as open by design, and it's also not quite as, it's quick in terms of the ball travels, but it's not as quick in terms of whole units of a team traveling and overloading defenders. And I think if you look good in the Bundesliga, I think that's a really, really good standing. I don't have a huge catalogue of evidence to back that up, but I'd be quite confident about those players.
Now, quickly on that, like, one of the things that we've kind of struggled with was in transition. And there's hella transitions in Bundesliga. So he's got experience in terms of dealing with like that type of shit. So bring him in, because we need that shit.
Yeah.
And I got another listener question for you, bro.
I know which one this is. I know what it is. Go on. Ask the question.
So why do you hate Mason Mount?
I don't hate Mason Mount. Joe has been spreading this propaganda. I don't know where this propaganda's come from. My thing is, I hated him in number 10. I hated him behind the striker because for me, from the preseason, I could see that actually he was one of our best players in preseason. However, the way he executes number 10 for me is like a type of striker thing. Like he always wants to shoot. That's his thing. That's cool. But I just like him receiving the ball with his body facing to goal. So all of my tweets that you've seen, all of the energy is towards Mount. Let me get off. All the energy you've seen isn't towards Mount, it's towards Mount behind the striker.
Guys,
hold on.
For the record, Dan Smiler's gone when he was talking about that.
Tiden 90, if you're listening,
I've got breaking
Dan
news.
Smile turned into a grimace when you even mentioned.
Guys, I've got breaking news. Apparently, now don't quote me, but apparently a bid has been launched for Jadon Sancho.
Gloria,
Wow.
I saw apparently 70 million rejected. I saw that earlier. I don't know if it's true, but allegedly we had a 70 million bid rejected.
Chelsea are moving mad.
Roman numerals.
What's the source for that, Meads?
I prefer not to speak. If I speak, I'll be in big trouble. But a bid has been lodged, and as far as I'm aware, has been rejected for Jadon Sancho. Wow. Okay.
Because he was in London, wasn't he? Recently, he got told off. He come back for quote unquote a haircut, but
To be fair, I don't know about Dortmund and the trims in Dortmund. I've never been, but I don't know.
A-Stars still got their clients.
You know what? I have a theory behind all this, by the way. Has anyone noticed that we're moving mad as soon as one of our young wingers started making the wrong headline? Frank is like, you know what? Dead your contract. I don't care. I'm just going to go sign man in their yard like they're supposed to.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. We'll see, man. We'll see. It's looking very, very... We're moving aggressive. I can't lie. We're moving very aggressive. And I am... It's been a long time since I felt this feeling of...
Joy?
Not just joy, but... It's very difficult to put into words, but the feeling of Roman domination just flooding back again. Like, you know, when all of your rival fans and your friends that used to just absolutely hate Roman, all this rubbish money, he's like, it's fake money, he's got blood, like all of it, the drug. I don't think you understand the injections that I'll be doing if we get a couple of man. If we get Sancho or Havertz, the injections will be absolutely delicioso. The druggo will be a fix and a high that I have never experienced in my life. But here we are.
Yes, you need to speak to him because Meads is going off. Meads has gone too far. You need a bit of your...
I'm reading it back.
Yas is collecting himself.
Yas is furious.
This conversation with Jovic last year, and you got hurt, and I didn't want you to get hurt, and I tried to tell you that...
His silence was just like, I'm furious. I'm not going to say anything.
Like, you're too far gone, bro. You're too far.
My silence was a very different version of I prefer not to speak. But
No,
listen,
but it's going to be interesting.
even if we're just fronting with a bid just to look like the Dons, fuck it.
Have it, bro.
I'm saying, man.
Just test the waters, man.
Another question, which is not as headline grabbing as the other ones, but I know that with a lot of academy focused guys in the chat right now, It's one that could be interesting. Jonathan Kidd, thank you for having a real name and not some madness. He asked what future for Abraham if Werner signed. I think we've sort of touched on that. Future for Giroud, despite signing a new contract. If I'm honest, we've touched on that on a previous pod. I think that's more just a family decision. The world's a bit of an unstable place right now. It's a sensible thing to do. If things settle down and a decent offer comes in, I think he'll be on the move. But it just made sense in the moment. And thankfully as well, because I think we're going to need his help over these next few games towards the end of this restarted season. But then the last one is, if we do get Chilwell, there is a question about who we'd prefer out of Tagliafico or Tellers or Chilwell, and we can get into that after. But if we do get this left back, Jonathan Keys just asked, what about Maatsen? Is Maatsen someone that you lot see as worth that sort of backing and being made the second choice, or do you think he still needs a loan and he still needs a lot of development? I'm not huge on Maatsen in terms of minutes watched. I won't lie. He's probably the prospect I've seen the least of.
So Maatsen for me he's a good player. Definitely very very good in terms of going forward. Defensively, I feel he needs a bit of work, but I think that work comes with experience, and probably a loan will be best for him. But whilst we're getting rid of a left back, and I feel like he's got the capacity to play cup games and league cup games and FA Cup games, but is that enough for him at 18? I don't know. I feel maybe a loan would be sensible, the sensible option, maybe a 2-year loan. But at the same time, I do want to have him around. So it's quite. But I do feel like he presented with an opportunity, he could possibly take it, because I'm not quite confident on Chilwell. And if we do sell Emerson or Alonso, I'm not really confident on Alonso. I'm not confident with Emerson. I think he's a better player than people think he is, and he isn't really given the opportunity. And I guess the benefit of doubt that most squad players don't get really at Chelsea. But it's a weird one, really.
Who's this Emerson mid?
No, yeah, I think Emerson doesn't like most squad players.
Emerson's had moments here where
I feel like most squad players in our club don't get the benefit of doubt in terms of them being given an opportunity. For example, you're expecting a Giroud, or you're expecting a Michi, or you're expecting an Emerson who don't play often to perform, or Barkley to be playing at a high level every time that they get an opportunity. It's not really fair.
Emerson's a funny one that we've touched on. I know Dan hates it when he shoots, but like when towards the end of the Sarri era, he was good. He looked really promising, and I think he can definitely contribute. I think
defensively.
He's not. He's solid all round. He's not exceptional at any maybe one thing. He's a nice link-up player. I think, like we upset Jermaine with last week, I think him not being exceptional at any one thing is probably the thing that will put him first out the door, I reckon. And because if he's not starting, how is he going to sort of add a difference or a bit of variety or change the game? But we'll see what happens with the left backs, and that leads to, I think, really the last listener question that we haven't already covered, and it was that one that has just been mentioned, and that was, out of the 3 left backs that we are linked with, who are you most keen on? And I think also it's a bit of an empty question because the Chilwell link looks so strong. So I think maybe just summarise some of your thoughts on that, because I know there are some fans who aren't huge on Chilwell, but I know there are some fans who rate him a lot higher and think that people are too harsh on him and this, that, and the other. So, Joe, where do you stand on Chilwell as a player, especially in relation to the market and what we already have and the fee that we're being quoted? Because it seems like he's going to cost more than our last 2 signings by a considerable margin.
Yeah. I mean, if you're paying 40, 50, 60 million pound, whatever fee that's been looked at the moment for a left back, you've got to buy someone who is at least exceptional defensively or exceptional offensively. Like, he has to be one or the other. Ideally, you want someone who's a good 2-way player. And I don't think, certainly looking at Chilwell, I don't think he is of that caliber player. I mean, you'd pay it for like an Ashley Cole in his prime, that sort of fee. for a left back. He's not, he's not a Marcelo going forward. He's not Alexandro in his prime. He's not that good going forward, and he's not a fantastic defender either. So I think he's, athletically, I think he's great. He's got a great engine. I think he's a very physical player. He's pretty decent in the air for his size. Good size for a fullback. I think he's like 5'10", 5'11", decent enough size for a left back. But is he exceptional enough to pay that sort of money for him? I don't particularly think so, and it's kind of why I lean to looking at Tagliafico as the guy that I'd get. Because I just think that just from a pure defensive standpoint, if you have him for 2 seasons, you get to look at Maatsen, see how he develops over the next 2 years. But also you can start looking at a crop of some of these younger left backs that are playing in Europe and determine, if Maatsen's not the guy, who's going to be the long-term person. I think, Tagliafico comes in, he's probably a player at his peak. He's probably going to be there for the next 2-3 seasons. For me, defensive cover on the left-hand side is the most important thing that I would want in terms of the characteristics of players that I'm looking at. So for me, he's the guy. And, Chilwell, if they're paying 40 million for him and Lampard loves him, then, okay, fair enough. But I think from my perspective, I don't think he's worth anywhere near that sort of investment. And, if he wasn't English and, I'm not sure if anyone would be looking at him with the kind of numbers he's putting up, the kind of data, the kind of sort of, performances I've seen him have. I don't think you'd be looking at him in like France or Germany going, this is the guy that we want to bring in to be the left back for the next, 5, 6, 7 seasons. Because he's really young. He's like 21, isn't he? 22. He's super young. 23. So, I mean, he's going to be here for, 5, 6, 7 years. I don't think he's worth that sort of investment. But, I've been wrong about fullbacks in the past. But for me, not worth it. But Tagliafico's the guy.
What is the amount that's being touted for Chilwell?
40 is the lowest I've seen. I've seen anything up to 60, 70, which is mental.
Interesting. So, again, we talk about the utilization of resources and being efficient with our money. I don't see how a £70 million left back is being economical or efficient, especially point in time is looking crazy in terms of just basic economy. It just doesn't make any sense. We've looked at the numbers, we looked at the data, we looked at his analytics. I watch him thoroughly. Because again, the numbers that were being touted early in the season, it just made me feel quite uncomfortable. And I've liked Chilwell as a player. I don't think that he's shocking.
The highest I saw earlier in the season was 85.
85, yeah.
Imagine that's going to come
they're touting, it should be the same as what Maguire was paid by United. But again, it doesn't make me feel comfortable. And I've watched him enough, especially this season and last season. So last season, he had a relatively decent season. He was decent going forward. Again, decent defensively. He wasn't as exposed defensively. But ever since they've had Brendan Rodgers, he has been a lot more exposed, and he has been getting through a lot more work. And when he gets through work, and he starts getting tested, you start to realise that, he actually isn't good defensively. Defensively, not a good player. And offensively, going forward, he brings a lot of energy. And that may be something that Chelsea just need, just energy. But if you just require energy, then you might as well just play Emerson. But anyway, so going forward in terms of crossing, assisting, he doesn't provide any of that. He won't provide any of that. He may get a goal here and there, may get a couple of assists, maybe like 3 or 4 a season, but that's not really. And you're not good defensively. I just don't really see how you're getting much value. And like Joe said, 40 to 50 million pounds on a left back, it just doesn't make any sense. Tagliafico, again, he's 27, I believe, 28.
Yeah, 27, I think. Yeah,
that's the perfect age to buy a player, where especially when you've got a young player in the wings that you're hoping to develop, and you may not need an absolutely world-class left back. You might just need a competent one. But why would you buy a competent one, if you get what I'm trying to say? Why would you spend over £40 million on just a competent left back? You could just breed one, and that's what we have. There's every possibility that Maatsen could be a competent left back for us. But why would you ruin the opportunity of his growth and development by buying a 50, 60 million pound 23-year-old who's only 5 years or 4 or 5 years older than Maatsen? It makes no sense. So I'm hoping that Tagliafico is the player that we're after and we end up getting, because the Chilwell one just doesn't sit right with me. You're spending striker money on a left back. It's just strange.
Lampard listens to the podcast, innit? So I hope
I'm hoping, Frank. Yeah, but we've been talking about this for time, and Frank is still holding on.
He still needs some convincing, so hopefully that little monologue.
Come on, Frank. Well, but that's it really. But if we do buy him, but we also get the Werner, you got the Sancho or the Havertz, either one of those two, or you get So yeah, I can accept 2 or 3 out of the 4 transfers we make being okay, of being exceptional, and you could just get the Chilwell. And if he tanks, you get rid of him, you bin him, and we actually start doing a sensible transfer, get a Tagliafico the next season or whatever.
For me, quickly on this, I agree with Joe and the way he kind of sees things. I like the idea of having a defender as a left back, because we've got, like, if we imagine Ruben on the left central midfield, he can transition the ball up. So if Werner's playing there, we don't need him to transition. But we need Loftus to get in the box for crosses. We need Werner to get in the box for crosses. I want my left back to be defensively sturdy. What I want him to care about is the defense. I don't want Loftus looking back. Go forward, you know what I mean? So it worries me because Chilwell, a lot of people were saying at the beginning of the season, we need to get a better defensively kind of sound left back. And because Emerson was playing. And then when City played Leicester, Chilwell got ragdolled the same way. He got ragdolled. And that wasn't the only game that he got ragdolled too. So I don't have confidence in him defensively. Look, I'm not an expert in Chilwell, but one thing I do know is that stats-wise, I've looked at the stats. Tagliafico, obviously he's in a more like a weaker league, but he just looks like a defender, like first. And I'd even prefer just put Aspie there. But for me, that left back position, I need someone that's a defender first. Because like Joe said earlier, I think he summed it up nicely. Reece James is going to be bombing forward on the other side. He's going to be there overtaking Ziyech. On this side, we've got someone that is going to be cutting in. We just need someone to take care of that defensive side, because that's one side this season that we've been.
We lost you.
Yeah.
You lost you there. What did you say?
Yeah, so defensively, because that's one side. Obviously, if we've got Kante on the Reece James side, that's one side. If we're going to have Loftus-Cheek as the person we want to get into the box, we need someone sound defensively as a fullback.
Solid chat. I think that's a good roundup for what we wanted to discuss this week. Thanks for all your questions, those listening in. Gave us a real good guidance on the discussions. Next week, lock in. It will be our last pod, lads, before the Premier League returns. Unless there is unforeseen COVID madness. But listen in next week, because what we're going to be going over is a feature we're going to introduce moving forward indefinitely, where we're going to be doing the Chessy Hour Power Rankings, and we're going to be doing those monthly and just give some of you guys input as well, as we sort of put together our metrics and our opinions on who's had the strongest improvement over the month, who's dropping off a bit, who's most in contention from the academy, who's knocking on the door, who's leading the way in player of the season, player of the month polls. And it'll be really good. So we'd like to get a lot of interaction from you guys for that. And that will be next week, as well as just looking forward to the fixtures that we have, getting any more words from the gaffer, from Lampard, from players on this sort of the eve of the Premier League coming back, and hopefully having an actual signing, because all now this Werner thing could blow up in our face like it might have for the Cop End lot. So yeah. Boys, thanks so much for your time. As always, been great chatting. See you all next week. It's been Chessy Hour, Touchline Fracas, again and again every week, same time, same content. See you lot soon.
Bless.
Cheers, guys.
When I spit bars in a rave, man, I go hard like Stan.